Hi, welcome back to Storytime with Dad Booker. Appreciate you coming back. We're going to finish up. We've only got 2 chapters left, so we're going to do the next chapter of Sheriff in a Small Town, Helping Hands. We're going to do, I think there's 2 of them that we need to do today. Just a continuation of the same story. So we'll do those. Sitting with a can of coffee in the hobo camp, Rocky watched as a train slowly climbed up the hill. A few hobos tossed out their sticks and bindles, then dropped off themselves. Gathering their belongings, they made their way to the camp. Most of them he recognized and welcomed them heartily. The few newcomers were slightly put off by seeing a sheriff in camp, but a quick explanation that Rocky was a friend removed any tension. Rocky looked at the newcomers and sized them up. Most were getting on in years and had the look of a long time on the rails. In one, though, he could see the telltale signs of prior military service. The way the man sat was something always at his back, his constant surveillance of the surroundings and the haunted look in his eyes told of a time in the field at great expense to health and sanity. A badge on his vest indicated Army Ranger. Rocky conversationally informed them that Farmer Wilkens was in need of help if anyone cared to do a little work. Some of the hobos already had worked with Tom Wilkens before and were ready to renew the acquaintance. Standing, Rocky intimated that he was heading that way and anyone who wanted to ride should get on the truck. 5 got in the back, and at the last moment the man with the ranger pin sat in the cab with Rocky. Over the 2-mile journey, Rocky got to know the man better. He was recently out of shock at his reception when he arrived stateside. Even walking through the airport was a bitter reminder of how unpopular the war had been. Rocky agreed and told how Talbot and himself had gone through a similar experience. The man talked as he stared out the window. He spoke quietly as though speaking with his mind elsewhere. My name's Jack Lomax, and when I got out, I decided to live in South Dakota. When I came home, it just didn't feel like home anymore. My dad passed away a year ago, and I don't have anyone else. I met a hobo while I was working on a farm. The more he talked about his life, the more I wanted to hobo. I've been doing it for 3 months now, and it's helping me heal. Lots of fresh, clean air, and most of the people I meet don't care about my past, just if I can do the work they need. He grinned and turned clear eyes towards Rocky. Rocky grinned back. In this town, people treat you how you treat them. Be honest and hardworking, and they'll give you their friendship. And Tom's one of the best. You'll be all right there. He's got a great family, too. You're going to be in good hands. He sometimes lets folks sleep upstairs in the barn. You might be to the camp for a while. They finished talking as Rocky pulled into the wide lane leading up to the farm. Tom Wilkens and family walked out to where Rocky stopped and greeted everyone. The hosts who had worked with Tom before strode out to the field to begin working. Rocky introduced Jack. Tom looked over and liked what he saw. To be about 22 and was strongly built. Noticing the ranger badge, he nodded as if that was all he needed to know. Tom, I need some help. Sorry. Got that wrong. Jack, I need some help in the barn. I've stupidly double ordered on the feed and guess I'll be keeping what they sent. It's got to go into the loft, and you'd be a darn sight handier getting them. Jack grinned and followed Tom into the barn. He easily tossed a couple of 50-pound bags onto his shoulder and mounted the steps. Tom followed, but a little bit slower. After a few trips, Jack started feeling warm. Taking off his shirt, he revealed a muscular frame covered by a tight t-shirt. Tom's 12-year-old son stopped at the muscular man before him. He checked his own muscles in comparison and found them wanting. Tom's 14-year-old daughter gawked at the sight and rushed out of the barn blushing. Rocky saw that Jack was going to be all right and left of his own. Jack spent most of the day working in the barn. He learned to clean the stalls and feed the cows. He helped the vet catch the heifer cows for inoculation. By 10 o'clock, Tom's daughter assisted in the milking. She asked Jack if he'd be willing to help too. Jack going to get plenty of new experiences today. His daughter Millie showed him what to do. She detached the teacups after he cleaned and disinfected the teats. As each cow finished, he'd lead it out to the corral and bring in the replacement. Since it takes 5 minutes to milk a cow by machine, he was kept hopping. By the time he had finished with the inside cows, those in the corral, he flopped down hot and tired. Billy commiserated on his plight, and he jumped up and laughed when she ran to the house giggling. Everyone was called in for dinner, and at the end of the workday, Jack was seen to discuss the work for the next few days. Tom wanted to keep Jack close at hand, as he had discovered Jack was a natural at working with the animals. From down the table, a hobo who was a regular at the farm offered to assist in taking on the herd as well. Tom knew Darren from past times, and while he was good in the field, he wasn't sure about his abilities in the barn. However, he considered that 2 men working the barn would keep Jack from being overworked. He agreed, and Darren smiled happily. He considered the barn to be... Well, time would tell how correct his assumption was. The next day began early with a hearty breakfast, then it was all hands out. Jack and Darren spent the morning bringing in the cows for milking, then passing them off to the kids as they did the milking. Tom's son Willie was on any cow who seemed to be in a bad mood. Willie was content to let him have all the bad-tempered beasts he wanted. As Darren finished a beast, he'd take it to Millie with the "here you go." He even tried to joke with her, but she usually took it without comment. The fact that she always thanked Jack began to nettle him. Jack was polite and talked to both children equally, and even joked with Darren. As the day wore on, Darren realized the barn work wasn't as easy as he had thought, and began to slack off, leaving Jack to accomplish most of it. At lunch, Jack took his meal in the barn, and the 2 kids joined him when he didn't come in for his meal. In the house, Darren expressed concern that the children were becoming overly fond of Jack. So it wasn't good for them to be alone with a stranger. Besides, he was only just recently returned from overseas, and you could just tell that it affected him. I know he seems okay now, but you never know with these military guys. They could snap just like that. He snapped his fingers. Kane on the other side of the table disagreed. Hell, I worked with him in Iowa. He was fine the entire time, never a cross word or a hint of anger, even when things were going hard. Just dug in harder and got us through it. Darren threw down the napkin. Yeah, but people change. God knows what he's been through and seen over there. Darren had never been in the military and wouldn't go if they offered it to him. He'd heard enough about the ones who returned, though, that he wasn't about to trust Jack. He turned on Tom. He's out there right now alone with 2 kids, one of which is your daughter. Don't that concern you? Hell, from the way she looks at him, I bet the kid's got a crush on him already. Tom's wife, Sarah, glared Darren down, but went to the door. About time they came in and did their inside chores anyways. She called them in and sent them to take care of their chores. Sitting back down, she resumed her part of the conversation. Millie has a good feeling about people, almost what they call it, the psychic. She can feel when a person's okay to be around. We'll keep an eye on them, though, just as we always do. Sitting back in her chair with her arms crossed, effectively ending the discussion. After dinner, Jack asked Tom if he could set up a diving board at the lake. The kids had been talking about wanting one, and with the spare boards lying around, he could knock one out quick. Tom shrugged and gave the okay. Seemed that Jack was one of those people who just had to keep busy. Darren usually went to the camp in the evenings, but this night decided to well, his reasons for doing so were his secret and nobody's business. He stayed awake after Jack had gone to sleep. He was looking out the loft window that faced the farmhouse. Night was cool and peaceful. He saw the lights on the house go off one by one, the last being Millie's. Through the sheer curtains, he could see her kneeling at the foot of her bed, saying her prayers. He snickered at the thought of a 14-year-old still doing it. He looked over to see Jack still asleep, but restless. Darren lay down and tried to sleep himself. In the early hours, he was wakened by a shout from Jack. Jack look of terror on his face. Darren went to check on him, and finding that he was still asleep, said, "Good morning." Jack was still sitting up but awake and look about him. Darren admonished him to get ready for work. "Come on, we'll be late if we don't hurry." Jack apologized. "Sorry. Had a rough night." Darren snorted. He'd heard about these night terrors these military kids claimed to have. As far as he was concerned, it was just a way to call attention to themselves and have a pity party. At breakfast, Jack's lack of his usual to go unnoticed. Even Tom was concerned to the point he asked if Jack wanted to take the day off. "Nah, I'll be okay once I get back to work." He left without finishing his breakfast. The sound of everyone's concern about Jack irritated Darren further. Don't go into him. He's just trying to get attention. It's all an act that these folks put on. So they've seen some stuff that messed with them. Hell, we've all had things that upset us. Don't mean we go around moping and acting like we're going to jump at our own shadow. Got to be more irritable as he watched Millie get up and fill a thermos with coffee to take out to Jack. "It might help him keep going until lunch," she said as she headed out. "You come back straight, young lady. You got to help me get lunch together." Billy waved and ran out the door. Darren snorted and finished his breakfast, cutting his sausage with unnecessary vigor. "Think I'll head back to the camp tonight. Don't seem like there's Jack here." Tom looked at Darren in surprise. "Jack's been we're just trying to make him feel at home. Same as we do for all." The other hobos nodded in agreement and, finishing off their breakfast, headed out to. After milking, the herd was set to go to another corner of the field, and the field loaded with manure would be plowed and planted. Jack was busy shoveling out the old bedding barn cattle and mounting it up high on a flatbed. This would be trucked out to the field as well and spread out. Darren attempted to assist, but realized this was even harder than he had wanted and helped line up the cows for milking. As usual, he tried to engage Millie in conversation, but she seemed to be too focused on milking to be talking to him. Willie was more in the mood for joking, so Darren shrugged and told some of the jokes he knew. Willie was unamused as the jokes were old ones, and as far as he was concerned, pretty lame. Jack came up looking slightly better. "Thanks for the coffee, Millie. It's helped a lot." She flashed him a smile and went back to setting the cups on the cow's teats. Darren reached for the thermos. "I could use a pick-me-up too." Jack handed him the cup, but Darren drank from the almost full thermos, draining it. If looks could kill, the look Millie gave him should have made him drop down on the spot. He placed the thermos down on a bale and swaggered off as if he had done something clever. Tom came around to check on progress. He saw his herd well taken care of and expressed his admiration at how quick everyone was taking care of things. "Hell, with all your help, we're getting about 4 times done that we usually do. I think we'll be able to plow and plant tomorrow, Jack. Do you know how to run a tractor?" Jack nodded. "Great. Then you can run the tractor while me and the kids shovel the muck off the flatbed." After work, Jack led everyone to see their new diving board. The lake was clear and inviting after a long, hard day. Tom looked at the men staring at the cool water and suggested they all hop in. Men took off their shirts and dove in. The 2 children ran home and returned in swimsuits. Diving in, they swam around like fish. They'd dive underwater and come up behind one of the hobos from behind and splash them. Then they'd get picked up and thrown, then hit the diving board again. When they did to Jack, he tossed them high in the air. Darren swam towards them to toss them, but only to be avoided. Willie saw a look on Darren's face and decided to placate him. He tried to throw him, but couldn't get any height, and Willie just skimmed backwards in the water. Tom sat on the ground and watched. He was becoming fond of Jack and considered he might offer him a permanent job. Good, reliable hands that were adaptable to anything were hard to come by. Now let me check how many pages. Okay, let's do the next one too. We'll do this one's news. Rocky was hunched over the fax machine, drumming his fingers on the casing. Talbot came in and wondered what was so fascinating. When he caught a look at Rocky's face, he saw that something portentous must have come in. Rocky slowly stood up with a sheet in his hand. Here's another one. Fifth missing child in the past few months. None from around here, for which I'm thankful for. Talbot took the sheet and placed it as a pin in the map. You know the paper's been reporting on these, but maybe we ought to put something in too. Rocky sat down to compose a plea for people to keep a closer eye on their children. It's going to be hard, though. Half the time they don't see their kids until late in the evening, when it's time for supper. Still, it might help. He finished off his copy and walked it down to the Sentinel. Talbot was looking at the pin marks and shaking his head. Poor kids. 2 had turned up dead, and the rest still missing. With Michaela sure she was pregnant, anything that dealt with kids had his instant attention. The idea that anyone could hurt a child made him furious. If he ever got one of those people in the cell, he felt he couldn't be held accountable for his actions. Rocky came back and tossed Talbot the squad car keys. Talbot tossed them in his hand absently. Think I'll go up to the hobo camp for a bit. Ever since you introduced me, I've been going up once in a while. Seem like good folk, and they have plenty of interesting stories. You think I should take them? Coffee's always welcome, and maybe some flour too. Oh, a bunch of apples would be really appreciated. Take some money out of the kitty. We can spare it for this. Talbot took some of the emergency funds and marked out the amount on the log. By the time he finished his round, it was getting towards evening when he visited the camp. Seated comfortable for being so makeshift, and the food was excellent. Talbot was talking about the recent child abductions they had gotten reports on. Hobo's promised they'd keep an eye and ear out. Talbot thanked them and eventually remembered he had a pregnant wife at home to check on. Getting up to leave, he was accosted by Darren, who wanted a private word. Hey, you might want to do a check on Jack. He's new to the camps and he's got some issues. I was sleeping. He was awake and looking at me like he was going to attack me. It scared me so much I couldn't sleep after that. I came back to camp because of it. I'm thinking of going back, though, to keep an eye on him. Tom's good people, and Jack's been spending a lot of time with his family. I think Jack might be trying to gain their trust, and once he's got it, who knows what he'll do. Darren paused to let the implications sink in. I think that Tom's daughter has a crush on Jack. He's a young guy, and he might take advantage of that. Guys might want to pull him in and do a check on his movements, see if they match up with those kids that went missing. I'd sure hate to have anything happen to that family. Talbot promised to look into it and offered to drop Darren off at the farm if he really was going to go back. Darren assured him that he would, and I've been sitting by the window keeping an eye on the house. If he tries to go in, I'll see him and take action. Talbot wasn't sure how much action Darren would be capable of. Dropping Darren off, Talbot parked near the farm. Things Darren had spoken of were buzzing in his head. Rocky was on night duty. He wanted to see him. Rocky heard Talbot out and went to the board where they had placed pins for each child that had been abducted. Suddenly noticed that there was a connection. All abductions were fairly close to a rail line. They also started about a year ago. That's around the time Jack started. Talbot nodded, feeling that they were both thinking the same thing. If Jack was their man, he had a good plan for what he was doing. Going place to place on the rails meant quick getaway, and working on farms allowed him to be out of sight. Rocky wasn't convinced, though, from what he had seen of Jack. He instinctively liked him. Still, he could have made an error in judgment. Talbot, I'm going to take a trip out to the Wilkens place. We may be on the wrong track, but we better check. Talbot put on his coat. Guess I'll come with. This guy's pretty darn strong, and it may take 2 of us if we have to take him in. Rocky put a call in to Tom to let him know he was coming up and why. Well, you won't find him here. In fact, I ain't seen him all day. Seems he and Darren had a set to. Darren's been talking plenty about Jack, saying he's dangerous and probably responsible for all those missing kids. The rest of the boys don't believe a word of it, but it seemed to make Jack jumpy. Guess maybe Tom paused trying to take everything in. Sheriff, I can't believe it. He might have been having problems because of the war and stuff, but I have to believe he was all right. Kids are mighty broken up about him leaving, too. Millie's taken to her room and is crying her eyes out. Over the line, they heard the slap of the screen door. Tom placed his hand over the mouthpiece so the voice could still be heard. Sir, the whole herd got out of the field. Someone left the gate open. The group's out now trying to get them in again, but they're having problems. Can you come out with the dogs? Tom got back on the phone with Rocky. Gotta go. Hope you find Jack. The phone clicked and the line went dead. Talbot put in a quick call to check on Michaela. Agnes was there, so he could go and do whatever he needed to. Two lawmen leapt into the squad car and burned rubber out of town with the siren on and lights flashing. Speeding to the hobo camp, Rocky suddenly slammed on the brakes, sending the car spinning and tore off towards the Wilkens farm. Talbot was alarmed at the way Rocky was looking. His jaw jutted and there was a look of fierce determination in his eyes. You want to tell me what you're thinking? Those kids are in danger right now. I hope we can get there in time. Talbot checked his and Rocky's sidearms and steered ahead as the scenery flashed by. Rocky stopped outside the fence line and hit the ground running. Talbot caught up to him, and quickly they were joined by Jack. Rocky and Talbot skidded to a halt, but Jack continued running towards the farmhouse. The sheriff and deputy had a choice, either fire to stop Jack or catch up to him. They put on a burst of speed and caught up. Jack arrived at the back door and tried it. Locked. Talbot hurried to the other door and found it was locked as well. The sound of Willie's yell spurred them into action, and Rocky forced the front door open. Running up the stairs, their footsteps were muffled by the carpeting. As they ran, they could hear Darren in Millie's room. Shut up, or I'll truss you up too. You're just like all the others. You flirt with everyone, don't you? Just a little tease like all the rest. Well, you're going to get what you've been asking for. It was a piercing scream as Jack reached up top step. He leapt into Millie's room and flung Darren into the hallway. Darren stumbled back and went over the railing, falling to the landing below. He rose unharmed, but partially stunned. Rocky and Talbot leapt over the railing and landed on Darren, putting cuffs on him and dragging him out to the squad car. Tom and his wife came running back when they had heard the scream. They saw Rocky and Talbot with a person in cuffs tossing them into the squad car and heading off. In the house, they found Jack untying Willie, with Millie trying to help. She was trembling so hard she couldn't keep her hands still enough to be of much aid. Freed, Willie began to cry as well, and Tom took his children in his arms. He and Sarah carried them downstairs, asking Jack to come along. Seated in the kitchen, they thanked Jack for his rescue of their children. Look, sorry I left so mysteriously, but with Darren spreading lies about me and in the camp, here, I figured it would be best to fade out. If anything was going to happen, it would happen when someone felt safe that I wasn't around. I was close enough that I heard that the cattle got out. Tom, you know I fixed that gate so it was as good as new, if not better. There was no way they could have gotten it open. It had to have been done deliberately. That means someone was trying to get everyone away from the house. With the two kids here alone, I got worried and was rushing up when I was joined by the sheriff and deputy. Guess they trusted me enough they didn't take a shot at me when I passed them up. We teamed up and, well, you know the rest. Millie was looking at the wide eyes of Jack. He was going to... She couldn't get the rest of the words out. Jack shook his head. None of us would have let that happen. I guess we all had to figure it out the same. Tom offered Jack a full-time job, permanent. He even offered to put up a trailer near the barn if he'd stay. Jack looked at the expectant faces and considered the proposition. Hell, I've never had a family except my dad. We were constantly on the move and never had a real home. He was a truck driver and we lived out of his truck. He died while I was overseas, so I had nothing left when I came back. No family, no home, no life. That's why I took to the rails. Tom reached over and laid a hand on Jack's arm. Son, you've got a home here and a family if you stay. Jack started tearing up and he was suddenly in the middle of a group hug with Sarah and the kids. I guess I'm finally home. All right, so that's it for today. Next one is Strangers, and then Dark Clouds, and we're going to be doing a long one next time. We're going to basically finish up from page 260 to page 286. So we're going to be busy. Might as well get this done with. So that's it for today. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoyed these. Couple left. One more reading, and then we'll start on something new. I think we'll be reading, which one? World Mind is next. So if you like these, leave me a message. If you don't like them, tell me what you don't like or what kind of books you'd like to read. I got plenty in my collection. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again next time. Be good yourself. Bye.